My name's Harold Cassidy. What we're going to do is I'm going to give you a little background. I'm going to introduce my co-counsel, Michael Caspino of Buchholz von Niemer, which is a Los Angeles law firm. I have a statement. I'm going to give you a little background on the case, the procedure, some of the facts. Mike will have a statement also. And after that, Michael and I will answer some questions that you might have pertaining to the history of the case, some of the issues, the legal stuff. Melissa will then make a statement, and Melissa will be available to answer some of your questions. Okay? So, yesterday we were in the Federal District Court before the Honorable Otis Wright II. And we had a very interesting, fun, and lively exchange. And during that exchange, the Federal District Court judge referred to surrogacy as this ugly business. And so part of the discussion we had yesterday was about the ugly business, as the judge put it, of surrogacy. If I can be so bold, I would ask the question how America became so cruel that we're treating children as if they were products to be bought and sold without any real national discussion over, one, the constitutionality of it, two, the ethics and morality of it, what the public policy should be, and what, if any, safeguards we should have for the women who were used in this fashion and the children who were given away and sold in this fashion. So we have a case that Melissa Cook has brought. She's gone through a lot in order to do that. She can explain some of that to you. But because she has, the rest of us have been given an opportunity to finally, for the first time in this country, decide the constitutional issues that are presented by her case and what she has brought. Give you a little bit of history of the case. On January 4, a complaint was filed in the civil court in the state of California. In that complaint, Melissa challenged the constitutionality of the statute. When I talk about that, I don't want to bore you on too much legal stuff, but one of the allegations that Melissa has made is that it is a violation of the 14th Amendment rights of children, in particular these three. And this whole thing began simply because Melissa was concerned about these three children, the three children that she was carrying. And after she was carrying three children, events developed that indicated to her that this man was not vetted by a surrogacy broker, as she had assumed and thought, that this man was not capable of raising these children, and he said so, and his lawyer said so, to the point where he originally talked about aborting all three children, and then ultimately said, we'll abort one, and demands were made upon her to terminate the life of one of the children, risk in the process of killing all of them. And when she refused repeatedly, she was threatened with a letter from the surrogacy broker that she would be sued in a court of law for large money damages. And this woman who's carrying these children, who has them kicking, whose heartbeats she hears, says, I'm not doing that and I can't do that. Then the man she trusted told her that he would give the child up for adoption, and she says, I'll raise any child you can't raise. I'll take the baby. His response to that was he'd give the baby to a stranger before he'd give the baby to the mother who carried the children, saved their lives. I want you to think about what that must have been like, because she's not the only woman in this country that's gone through this. I've gotten the calls, but she can tell you her story. What was that like to be isolated like that. When the man who she trusted demands either kill one of the children, risk the death of all of them, or I'll give one or more away, his lawyer or surrogacy broker threatens lawsuits, and then on top of that, the lawyer who was supposed to be her lawyer piles on and tells her she has to have an abortion. And she's all alone in the world, the only person who can protect these children. So she files this complaint in the state court, and on the 4th of January. By that point, CM and the man who was acting as CM's lawyer knew that Melissa had no intention of voluntarily surrendering all the children, that she wanted to know what was going on. She wanted to do what was best for these children, and her position is she would raise any child that he can't raise, but that the welfare of these children had to be determined by a court on what's in their best interest. Just like every other child in this country, when there's a dispute. She takes the position that these children have the same right as all other children to be placed based on what's in their best interest. And that's all she wanted. And if that meant she would take the responsibility of raising one or all of them, she would do that. If that meant that a court said what's best for them is that CM raise them in Georgia, she would accept that determination. She also raised the constitutional right of the children to have a relationship with their mother. What she has said in her lawsuit is that the mother-child relationship is the touchstone and core of all civilized society. And in the middle of this, what she had to face was the reality that surrogacy, in its core, is to deprive these children of a mother. What public policy can justify that? But more fundamentally, those children have constitutional rights to know both their parents. They have a constitutional right not to be deprived of a mother if that's what's good for them. She also raised the whole concept of the constitutionality of selling a baby. Now, the surrogacy brokers who wrote the statute in California, who admittedly wrote the statute in California for the surrogacy industry, they wrote this statute in a way where they will tell you that money given to a woman to act as a surrogate is money for services. This, however, is nothing short and nothing different from the purchase and a sale of a child, because he didn't try to purchase services. He wanted exclusive control. He wanted exclusive custody of the children, and that's what he bargained for. Anything short of complete control to do with these children what he wanted, even if it meant he was going to give them away to a stranger, was what he bargained for. And that's what every surrogacy contract bargains for. So we have the constitutional rights of the children, and no one in this country has done what Melissa Cook has done, has stood up and said, the courts have got to examine the rights of these children. Secondarily, she raises the rights of the women who are served up to men who want children, who are treated, and these are my words, not hers, as breeding animals. Melissa Cook went through 90 days of a drug regimen where she was injected to the point where she had hematomas in her body. Some doctor did a triple embryo transplant in a woman who was going to be 48 years old before they were born, guaranteeing the creation of a high-risk pregnancy for the mother and for each of the children. And then, and by the way, there's a record that shows all of this. The federal court record has the documentation of everything that I'm saying. to the point where after the father who says, I can't raise 3 children, his lawyer who says he's a single 50-year-old man who's deaf as the reason why there had to be a termination of 1 or more of the children, then later says, well, it has to do with the potential health risks for the children. So this incestuous relationship between the doctors and the hospitals and the surrogacy brokers and the so-called intended parents that place everybody at risk then want to use the risk they created as a justification to terminate 1 or more of the children. So she filed the complaint on January 4. On January 7, the civil court dismissed the complaint, refused to entertain the substantial constitutional issues on the grounds that the day before, CM, knowing that there was a case filed in the civil part, filed a petition in the children's court. And what's public record in the federal case is that the petition that he filed claimed that she wanted her rights terminated and she wanted the rights of the children terminated. So Melissa then did 2 things. She filed an answer to the petition in children's court, and she filed a counterclaim. And in that counterclaim, she raised all the constitutional issues that she had raised in the civil court. That was on February 1, and the next day, on February 2, she filed the complaint in the federal district court. And she filed the complaint in the federal district court for the same reason why she filed the complaint in the civil court, because the children's court was not well equipped to handle the constitutional issues. On February 8, what's in the federal record is that the district court announced that, the family court, the children's court, announced that she would not even consider Melissa's answer, would not even consider the counterclaim, would not even look at the constitutional questions, and instead treated it as if it was an uncontested matter and announced from the bench that there was no need for home studies, that the statute is construed as meaning, that what's best for the children is irrelevant, and that, in fact, the court said that what happens to these children once they're turned over to CM is none of the court's business. The next day, she entered an order terminating the rights of Melissa Cook and terminating the rights of the 3 children with respect to their relationship with their mother. Totally disregarded the constitutional rights of all of them. That decision has been appealed. It's pending in the Court of Appeal in the state court. Yesterday we were in federal court when Judge Wright talked about the ugly business of surrogacy. That's the background. So I'm going to introduce Michael Caspino, co-counsel. Michael has a few words to say. When he's done talking, we will open up for questions for the lawyers. If you want to talk about the procedures or anything like that, then we'll introduce Melissa. Melissa will make her statement, and you can question Melissa, okay?
Good morning. My name is Mike Caspino, and I am co-counsel for Melissa Cook. I'm a lawyer of very few words, so I just have a couple things to say. What draws us to a case like this is that in the state of California, since the history of our state, when dealing with children, courts have looked at one primary thing: what's in the best interests of the children? This is the first case that I've ever heard of, in the United States even, where a court said, we're not going to take the best interests of children into account when determining custody. This is a landmark case. This is a case that must be appealed. This is a case that must be won. And the reason for that is we're going down a path now where we're disregarding the best interests of the children and taking other priorities into account, like surrogacy contracts, like money paid. Those things have no place here. And what this fight is all about is what's in the best interests of children and what's in the best interests of Melissa's 3 baby boys. Thank you very much.
Mike and I will take questions on the law, if you have any, on the procedure up to this point, if you have any.
I have a question. You talked about surrogacy denying these children a mother, but a lot of times surrogates are carrying a child for a husband and wife. Sometimes their eggs, their sperm. So how would, when you're looking at surrogacy as a whole, this obviously went to a single dad. But how does that change things? Because it's not always the case that it just goes to one parent.
There have been many cases that we've seen, beginning with the Baby M case, where we had a married couple who used a woman to carry a child for them. And one of the problems with surrogacy that's inherently a difficulty is that this is the first time in our culture where the focus has been shifted from what's best for the child to what adults want. We have always focused the core of child rearing is what's best for the child. So much so that there's a United States Supreme Court case, Ford versus Ford, that says that the Article 4 requirement of our Constitution that says that one state has to give full faith and credit to the judgment of another state does not apply where one state places a child for custody without determining what's in their best interest. The other state doesn't have to pay attention to that judgment. One of the things that's being lost here, and I think Melissa's case actually highlights it, is that pregnancy itself plays an important role in parenting. That pregnancy, one of the points made by the 178-page New Jersey Bioethics Commission report was that pregnancy becomes the basis for a lifelong relationship between a mother and a child. We know so much more today about the bonding, about the elevated levels of oxytocin and all the other things that go on, where the mother bonds with the child, loves the child, and the child with the mother. And the child knows that mother. Those children know no one other than, when those children were in the hospital for 8 weeks, unattended by a parent, they had known no one but Melissa Cook. I didn't mention that to you. Melissa probably will want to talk about this. But the hospital did the bidding of the surrogacy broker by not permitting the mother. They took the babies out of the womb of the mother, and while she's conscious and wants to see the children, they refused to let her see the children that she carried, whose life she gave, whose lives she protected. And they posted guards on the floor. And Mike can talk about this because he was one of the people whose identity was taken because he wasn't permitted to see Melissa Cook in a hospital room without giving his identity to a security guard who was there to be sure that the mother of the children could never get to see the children. And those children were on that hospital floor for she would have seen them every day. They were there 8 weeks, she would have seen them every day, breastfed them every day, loved them every day, held them every day, and sang to them every day. And there was no one there because the man was back in Georgia. He was there for 3 days. So your question is complex. None of this has been examined. The only place I ever saw it examined carefully was by the New Jersey Bioethics Commission that looked at it for 3 years, wrote a 178-page report, and said all surrogacy should be banned and criminalized.
So that's my question for you. Do you think surrogacy should be banned, or do you think surrogates need more rights?
Surrogacy needs to be fixed, because right now, the woman who carries the babies and the children have zero rights, no rights whatsoever. And there needs to be a balance here. The only rights under the California statute are the people that write the checks to get the baby. Nobody else matters. That is wrong, and that needs to be fixed.
Let me add one thing. Following the Baby M case, all of Europe criminalized surrogacy. To answer your question, they determined that none of this could be fixed. Maybe it can, maybe it can't. About 3 months ago, the European Parliament came out with their statement and declared that surrogacy is a human rights violation. It's an exploitation of women, commodification of children. They don't fool around with it because they made the determination that no aspect of it can be fixed. Any other questions?
How much did Sam pay?
The 75-page contract was a little bit complicated, and the amount of money that he was obligated to pay depended on how many children lived, how long they lived for, how many were delivered, and the total amount would come to something like, depending on a period of disability, $35,000 to $40,000, maybe even more. And on the day that the babies were taken from Melissa Cook, she was owed over $20,000. And when she walked out of that hospital, she told CM she didn't want another penny from him, because that was the day for the first time when she felt that this money is in exchange for the children.
So for
Now,
every
there are women, as well, if you're writing a story, there are women who are offered $100,000 to carry a child. What can that mean to a college woman who is in debt from her college loans? Any other questions? Melissa, you want to come up?
Good morning. I'm Melissa Cook. From the very start, my concern has been for the 3 baby boys that I delivered. And I am here to represent all the unborn children and the surrogate mothers that have to go through a similar ordeal. So I've learned a lot during this process. I have been a surrogate before. This time around has been truly horrible. Being asked to abort a healthy baby, it devastated me. I could not do that. CM's lawyer made persistent demands on me to terminate the life of one of the children, and I refused. I could not see aborting a healthy child. The babies were moving around in me. I heard their heartbeats. Being asked to do that, and then being asked to do that at such a late term. I was 17, 18 weeks pregnant. They wanted me to abort up until I was 20 weeks. And I refused. When I refused, the lawyer, CM's lawyer, the surrogacy broker, sent me a few letters telling me that I am in breach of contract, that I will be held responsible for financial damages, the cost of the children's care being born early in the hospital. If they had any lifetime developmental disabilities, I'd be responsible for that. I would be responsible for CM's therapy, for his counseling, because of the emotional trauma this is putting him through. And I had my own counsel at the time, paid by CM, and, telling her that I could not go through with that. I went into this to give life, not to terminate. My lawyer said that I shouldn't proceed with the abortion because, again, I would be held in breach of contract and be responsible for a great sum of money and basically be facing financial destitution. And I told her, nothing's going to change my mind. I am not going to terminate. I will face that when it happens, the financial destitution. So at that time, I was very alone. I had nobody, in my court to help me stand up to not abort these babies. And I went online to see if anybody else had been in my circumstance, has gone through that. I couldn't find anything. I found about aborting a child who had like a birth defect, but not a healthy child. I also want to point out that CM's demands for an abortion were due because he was basically breaking his bank, paying for the surrogacy. He wouldn't be able to afford the children when they were delivered. He did not want to pay for the cost, could not pay for the cost of their care in the hospital because triplets are born early. And I believe he was scared. And, to ask me to terminate because he couldn't afford the cost of my care, let alone the children's care, it was unbelievable. And the surrogacy broker, I thought, had a due diligence to check this man out, do a psych evaluation, a background check his finances, to make sure, he's able to take care of children. He did want multiples, and that was not done. Again, did not, obviously, I gave birth to 3 healthy baby boys, proceed with the abortion. When I had the children, I was exactly 30 weeks pregnant on February 22nd, and I had a C-section. I had a friend of mine in the surgery room with me for her support, to have somebody there with me. And the hospital staff inside that room kicked her out, told her she was not allowed in there with me because nobody could see the babies. And they pulled the babies out of me. I could hear the babies crying. I saw one really briefly pass by, and I asked are they okay? Everything okay with them? Sorry, ma'am, we can't give you that information. I go, are they healthy? Are they alive? No, we can't give you that information. It was just, I felt I don't even know what the word is, dehumanized. You know, they brought me back into the recovery room, and my own children came in. Where are the babies, Mom? You know, and having to explain to them that nobody's allowed to see the babies, not even me. And I was there at the hospital for 3 days and inquired about the children. They said they could not give me any information whatsoever on the children at all. I said, well, will you take my breast milk? You know, the babies need breast milk. I have, you know, the antibodies in my breast milk for the babies, and they refused, and I said, well, how are they getting breast milk? They told me a donor was giving the babies breast milk. So, I just sat in there wondering what was going on with the children, wondering if Sam was going to come out and see the children. And I was discharged, and I haven't seen the kids since. I was not allowed. And it's true, they were in the hospital for approximately 2 months, and CM came and saw them for maybe 3 days. But they were alone there in the hospital, and I really wanted to be with the children. All they knew was me. You know, they knew my heartbeat. They knew my feelings. You know, I protected these kids. I saved their lives, you know. Thank God they were born all healthy. And what I have been through, I do not wish on anybody. It's so hard. You know, being pressured to abort a healthy child, and that would risk the whole pregnancy. I don't know how they are doing right now. I do know that they were born healthy. And as far as surrogacy goes, it definitely needs to be fixed. I don't know if it is fixable. Surrogate mothers should not be treated like this, being placed demands on them. The children, these unborn children, they have no rights. Just being asked to terminate one of them just because, oh, I can't afford it. They were created to be loved and nurtured. Supposed to be. But surrogacy should not be ran like this at all. And that's what I have to say as far as that goes. Yes?
You said you'd aborted a surrogate once before.
Yes, I have.
Can you kind of give us a compare and contrast to the two experiences that you had? Obviously, you did it again. You must have had a pretty open
I had a
experience.
very positive experience. It was for a same-sex couple. They implanted one embryo. They wanted one child. That embryo took. I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The parents were very involved with the whole process. You know, I met them. I never met CM, which by the way, I asked to meet him, and the lawyer never answered my emails as far as meeting him. The parents were great, you know, going with me to doctor's visits, you know, very involved. They had real concern for me. It was awesome. They were there, and one parent was there in the room when I gave birth, and it was really bittersweet when, you know, the baby left the hospital with them. I mean, I was happy, but at the same time, you know, it's a beautiful little boy. And it was really, really great. I got to tell you, you know, see the happiness on these gentlemen's face. You know, they have their family complete. They have a child already. And I had no complications whatsoever in that pregnancy. It was just amazing. It was great. And so, yeah, I decided to move forward with another surrogacy.
But it seems like with this second one, that there were some red flags perhaps at the beginning, given
Yes.
the contracts.
The contract.
My understanding with the contract is that there was this possibility that he could request the reduction, if possible. If he
Yes.
was refusing to meet you. Those didn't ring any bells for you to maybe not go through with it?
I guess. A little bit, yeah. In retrospect, yeah. It was red flags. You know? But, you know, I also felt for him, you know, he's trying to find a surrogate to have a child. You know, so.
Can I just volunteer something on the legal side? The prior baby was born under the previous surrogacy law in the state of California, which allowed rights for surrogate mothers and children. Then the laws changed. Now we have a different situation, where essentially the mother has 0 rights and the children have 0 rights. That's a big part of this.
I would point out a couple of things. Number one, today, virtually every single surrogacy contract that's drafted by a surrogacy broker, and that's who drafts them, includes terms like Article 14 of Melissa's contract, which is the so-called selective termination. They all have it. There's a study that's been done that shows that half of the disputes arise over the demands for selective reductions. It's not uncommon. It's more common than we'd like to think. The other thing is, from a legal perspective, which is really important, is that there simply are some contracts that cannot and should not be enforced. There are numerous examples of them. But the one that has never, ever, ever been enforced is the sale of a child. And that's what this is. And one of the things that, I know you want to ask Melissa some more questions, and we'll let you do that. But that is the focus of the legal end of this. Now, one of the other things that we didn't mention is that we already know that the children were back in Georgia for only one day when CM had to bring them to the hospital, apparently because he didn't have to feed them. And we also were told, it's been reported to us, that Children's Services were called on a neglect complaint, and that investigators from Children's Services in Georgia has been watching the case. And I will tell you today, I will disclose today to you, that there will be a complaint filed in Georgia so that Melissa can get access to the children, so that we can find out what's going on there to ensure that the children are being well cared for. Melissa can answer any other questions?
So, Melissa, what are you hoping for? Are you hoping to get one of these babies, all of these babies, have visitation with these babies? I mean, what is it that you want?
I want what's best for the children. I want a custody determination done to see if CM can take care of the babies. If he's not unable to do that, yes, I will take responsibility for one or all the children.
You obviously care very deeply about these triplets. Can you explain the emotional toll that this has been for you to have carried them for, almost 9 months and then not have them now for 2 or 3 months?
It's hard to describe, but it's heartbreaking. I think about it constantly, every day, how the children are doing. I felt them moving around. I talked to these babies every day and hoped that they would come out healthy. Thank God they are healthy. It's really hard. It's really difficult. To know that, I have these children and they were just literally ripped from my womb. I couldn't see them. I don't know if they're handed over to him to check, to CM. And is he putting one up for adoption? Is one, given away? I don't know anything that's going on. Put yourself in that position, giving birth to 3 babies, 1 baby, and not know what's going to happen to that child.
But isn't that what you signed up for as a surrogate? I mean,
I signed up to give life. Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Because I know they're not, they're biologically not yours, and you also signed up to be a surrogate.
Yes.
So devil's advocate would say,
Wait.
you knew, am I wrong? Are they
Yeah, they're
wrong?
biologically hers, they're not genetically hers.
Okay, genetically, they're not yours, and you
Well-
signed up to be a surrogate.
Mhm.
So I can tell you that the critics will say, well, you knew what you were getting into.
Right, and they are. I signed a surrogacy contract to give birth to a child or children to a person who I thought was checked out, had the background, had the psych evaluation, had his finances under control. That's to help this man have children, yes. But once that contract was signed and then him changing his mind, that's not right. That's inconceivable. How can you do that?
So had he never asked you to reduce, we wouldn't be here. You would have handed the babies over and that would have been.
And if everything was okay with him and being able to take care of the children. But everything during this whole time has pointed the opposite direction.
So can you talk about some of those things, aside from him wanting to reduce and saying he didn't have the money? What were the other red flags that told you, I don't think this man's capable of taking care of these children? What made you worry about the safety of those kids?
Told you.
I already told you. Saying that he ran out of money. Why not have Melissa, I was copied on the email to his lawyer. Why not have Melissa get rid of all 3 of the babies? I was thinking about having 2, but I think I want her to get rid of all 3. What kind of person says that? I'm here pregnant with the 3 children.
Can I say something, if you don't mind? Okay. So your question implies, to some extent, and rightfully, because there'll be others who will ask the same question, that, quote unquote, she knew what she was doing. And a woman can make such a decision. If you want to honor the good judgment of a woman, then we should honor the fact that a mother who was carrying children, who cared for the children, could not bring herself to say, what happens to these children is none of my business. What happens to these children, I shouldn't care about. Of course it's her business. Of course she's going to care what's going to happen. And so when she gets information, and by the way, her lawyer was simply saying he's incapable of raising these children, and he said, number 1, he's 50 years old. Number 2, he's a single guy. Number 3, he's deaf. Number 4, he's got a mother who's confined to bed in the house there. They're the ones who are saying that he can't care for them, not Melissa. Melissa's just listening. What kind of mother would Melissa be if she got that information and she says, oh, wait a minute, I have to honor a contract? So what Melissa is saying, first of all, let's look at that contract for 1 second. What is it? It's 2 adults bargaining away the rights of children before the children even existed. What right does any adult have to sell, buy, contract away the rights of children? They don't. And we've never done that before. And so this is the case where that has to be examined. Is it constitutional? Of course the children have rights, it's established. By the way, I'll just mention that I do have copies of some of the briefing in the federal case that lays out all the facts and some of the legal issues that are being presented. If anybody who wants them, we'll make them available to you. Any other questions for Melissa?
Why did you, can you just tell us a little bit about your background, how many children you have, how old they are, and why you decided to do
Okay, I'll do this. I will tell you that Melissa has 4 children, but the private lives of those children can't be discussed here. That has to be one of the rules, if you don't mind. This is about the welfare of these other 3 children. This is about what's in their best interest and the contract and the enforceability of it. But Melissa's 4 children that she had with her husband are not to be discussed. I hope everyone can appreciate that.
Can you just tell us why she decided to be a surrogate in the first place?
Well, Melissa can tell you.
Yeah. I've always had, well, I have 4 children, and I've had healthy pregnancies. People that can't.
She once had triplets in her marriage.
Yes, I have triplets already. I feel for people who want a child and can't have a child. If I didn't have my kids, may have gone the surrogacy route, you know. It's a wonderful thing to be able to, that's the most precious thing you can do, is to give life. And for someone who can't have children. And I love being pregnant. I love feeling life growing. And I've had wonderful experiences delivering. So it's a win-win situation for everybody normally. So that's why.
Any other questions? Any questions for the lawyers? Okay.
How do you know what you know about where the children are now?
How do I know?
Yes, so she hasn't had any communication with them, so how do you know that they're being watched by Georgia officials?
Multiple sources, including CM's lawyer, who wrote me a letter and told me that the Georgia Children's Services did a home study, came in. He also told the press, People Magazine, there's Johnny Dodd right there, that there was among the sources, Johnny Dodd's a source. He said that Mr. Wormsley had told him that there's an investigator camped out outside their home. So somebody made a complaint. We have multiple sources that suggest different possibilities. It could have been the hospital. Could have been the hospital where this man who didn't know how to feed babies. Who knows? I don't. Some people know, but I don't know exactly who made the complaint. But his own lawyer admits that it happened.
So can you just tell us legally what's next? And also, I mean, I know you can't put a timetable on things, but this could be a very drawn-out legal battle. Meantime, these kids are,
Okay.
getting older and
So
older.
certain aspects of it will be drawn out. For a high federal court, or even for a high state court, or even the Supreme Court of the United States to determine the constitutional questions will take time. But we're filing in Georgia because Georgia's the place now that can give Melissa access. Georgia's the place that can find out what's going on with these children. And at some point, we're going to be able to depose CM and some other people, and we'll get all the information. And Melissa will do whatever is necessary to protect these children and the welfare of these children. Now, the children have been with CM for 1 month now. To Melissa, under the circumstances, that's like a lifetime. But to the rest of us, that's not that long. They were in the hospital alone, without any parent, because of a court order, twice as long as that.
Did CM know that the doctor was going to implant 3 embryos, 3 very healthy young embryos?
Yes,
Yes.
So he initially wanted multiples?
that's what he requested. The egg donor, as we understand it, was 20 years old, which guarantees virtually that all embryos would be viable. And some doctor in Southern California thought it was ethical to do a triple embryo transplant into a woman who would be 48 years old without knowing who was going to be raising those children. Now there's a fundamental question for you. If this industry, this cottage industry that has grown up, this incestuous relationship between the surrogacy brokers and the hospitals, and by the way, it's a surrogacy broker who represents the hospital in the federal case. There was a study that came out that showed that the hospital that delivers to a surrogate triplets makes 123 times as much money as they make with a single birth in a regular marriage situation. The money is driving everything. Everything is being catered to the people who are pumping money into this, even to the point where a hospital would do the bidding of a so-called intended parent and not let the mother even see the children, where the hospital wouldn't even let the mothers crying to know if the children she carried were healthy, if they were in trouble, and she couldn't even be told. To me, that's cruel.
Just for clarification on the filing in Georgia, what you're seeking out of that.
We're going to seek a best interest hearing, and Georgia's not bound by what they did in California.
In other words, is she seeking custody of the children?
If that is what's in their best interest.
All we've ever sought here is a determination as to what's in the best interest of these three boys, whether that's with Melissa, whether that's with CM, wherever it may be. But what's in the best interest of these three boys?
You knew that 3 embryos were being implanted. Did you not think then that was a risk for you to take?
I knew it was a risk, but I've delivered triplets before, and felt very confident that I would deliver 3 healthy again.
The medical doctor had a duty to make a determination about those risks. The surrogacy broker had a duty to determine what the home arrangement was with somebody who's going to take these children. The idea that everyone can make millions of dollars off of this stuff and it doesn't matter what happens to the children. The idea that she was abused by CM, she was abused by the lawyer, she was abused by a court that said that it was none of the court's business what happened to these children. Well, there's a question of justice. Justice for the children in a business of justice is everybody's business. Thanks a lot.